All right, working on I don't even know what year this is. I'm guessing mid 90s for the next body style. F150 here. Looks like two-wheel drive. No, it might be four-wheel drive, it looks like. Anyway, it went in for inspection here in Missouri. Every year or two, you have to get a state inspection, and it failed for a wheel bearing. So I'll kind of show you what it's doing here. You take the wheel, a little bit of play right there. All right, so I was wrong. It's two-wheel drive. I was looking at this cap here. If you look at it, it looks like a four-wheel drive hub right there. One of those ones that you select like a manual 4x4 hub. I should have known it wasn't because it was encased in there. But anyways, two-wheel drive, so that actually makes our job a lot easier. The four-wheel drive, you got to pull the hub off and all that. Need a special socket. It's not real hard, but it definitely adds to the job. This will go pretty quickly. So the first thing we'll do is get these brakes off and set them off to the side because you got to pull the rotor off. Of course, the bearings on these style wheel bearings are inside the rotor. They run on races in there. So we're gonna take this off and then we'll pop this cap off. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the tools ready and we'll start taking this old F-150 apart. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is remove this brake caliper and get this out of the way. On these, it's 14 millimeter. So we'll go ahead and do that real quick. Right, it's got all new brakes on it. Alright, so you never want to just hang your rotor. I'll get this off of here and then I use little OTC J clips, but whatever you have will work. Just don't hang the rotor by the hose, or hang the caliper by the hose, I should say. So go ahead and get your brakes out of the way. Now we're going to get this dust cap off. The bearing that I got comes with a new dust cap, but yours may not. Now a lot of guys I see will take a pair of big channel locks or something and kind of grab it right here and rock it back and forth. And you can do that, but you will bend this cap if you do that. Normally what I do is just take a small screwdriver or chisel and get behind here and just kind of go around it and tap it, and that gets it off without damaging the cap. You can see here, well, I don't know if you can see, but someone already bent this one using the method I just said. So they grabbed it with channel locks. Like I said, the one that I got comes with a new one of these. I'm pretty sure it did. I'll have to check. But I'll still take it off the way I normally take it off just to show you. And then we can get down to what we need to get down to here. Alright. I'm just going to get this off. I'm going to move it away from where it's dented already. Normally you just kind of tap it in there. And then I usually just twist it a little. You can see it's almost popped out now. And that, if you got a good cap, or you don't get a new one, just kind of turn it. See, it's almost out now. If you're not getting the new cap, that's the way I recommend doing it, just so you don't damage it. So you can see here, someone already grabbed this at some point with a pair of channel locks or something and just kind of rocked it out, which is fine. You can do that. It's not going to really hurt it that bad, but doing it the way I just did it is probably the preferred method. Now you got this cotter pin and then this castle lock thing. I almost wonder if it's just loose in there. Someone just did all the brakes and stuff. Maybe they took this apart for some reason and it's just not tight enough. See that? Yeah, I think what it is, it's just not tight enough. But now that it's been driven like that, I wouldn't trust the bearings in it anyway. So we'll go ahead and keep moving forward with it and go ahead and replace them. But my guess is someone did not tighten this enough when they did the brake job. That's pretty loose. Probably a few turns and it would tighten up enough. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and replace the bearings. I don't know how much it was driven with it loose like that. So I'm going to get a pair of side cutters, or as old school guys like to call them, a pair of dikes. It's not politically correct anymore. But, you know, here at Hoopties, we're not super politically correct anyway. So I'm not going to change what I call my tools, so I don't anger some crazy people, crazy feminists. So I'll go ahead and turn the cotter pin out. This is what we called dikes back in the day. Now they're called side cutters. That's probably their official name. But like I said, Hoopties is not politically correct. And usually if you get them spread, just use this as leverage and just kind of close it, pull up on it, and it should draw that out of there. You can see it is. So then you're going to pull off this little castle keeper here and put that off to the side, and you can see here this thing's almost backed all the way out. So really the problem is someone left this loose, and like I said, I don't know how much it was driven after that, so I don't really trust the bearings anyway. Plus this is a 95, so it's probably got, I wouldn't be surprised, it's got the original bearings still in it. So we'll go ahead and back this out, take that off all the way, and just kind of pull on it. Now this is your outer bearing. Alright, not 100% sure where I left off at. Somebody pulled up and my idiot dog started barking. So this is the outer bearing. You can see it's pretty dry. So anyway, now this should pull out. And this is the inner bearing and the seal. And I got a little trick I do. You can use a seal remover if you want to. What I do to get these rear seals off though is I leave, I just screw that on a little bit, and then I take the rotor and put it up over there, and I kind of pull down and jerk this off, and it should knock that seal and that bearing out like that. So that's just a little trick I use. Now you can get the, dang it, you can get the seal pullers and stuff and pull it out, but I've been doing this for probably 30 years, taking them off this way. I've never had a problem. So then you just remove that nut again. This is your inner seal and inner bearing, and there's a lot of grease right here, but not so much on here. So on the actual bearing. All right, now that we got everything apart, now's a good time to check and make sure they gave you the right bearings. You're going to get them. It's going to look like this. They'll be enclosed. This is your race. That's what the bearing runs on. And this is the bearing. And you can see here, they're the same size. I already checked them. So what I'm going to do next is knock the races out of this rotor here, and then we'll drive the new races in. So I usually just use a couple pieces of wood and turn the rotor over and just drive it out. They usually tap out pretty easy. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you how I drive them back in. But just double before you start taking. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter either way. You got to get the right parts. But if you're like us here in St. Louis, sometimes it seems like we're a third world country. We, common part for an F-150, it might take you 2 or 3 days to get it. Oh, it's in Springfield or it's here or there. So anyway, I won't get on that rant, but these are the right parts. So I'm going to go ahead and start driving those races out of there, and we'll drive the new ones in, then we'll get this thing buttoned back up. All right, these aren't usually too hard to tap out. I just put the rotor on a couple blocks of wood, kind of elevate it off, and I just use like a little flat drift, and you just get in there and get a hold of that outer or the inner edge. Ow! Hit my finger. That was pretty smart. That's for your entertainment. So I drove it out. This is the old race. So you can see there it's pretty easy to drive out as long as you don't hit your finger like a dummy. So now we'll just go for that outer race. So that's your 2 races. These are the old ones, obviously. Just beat them out. You can see it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to beat them out. You want to clean up the inside of this. This thing, I hate this grease. Whatever grease this is, it's like almost like angel hair. It's horrible. Look at that. I don't know if it's picking it up, but it's so stringy, like it's almost like hair. I can tell you right now, I don't miss this style bearings. This was what I dealt with when I started out, 16, 17 years old. This was all in the industry. That's all they ever used, really. And I'm glad for the new sealed hub and sealed bearings, because I don't miss this at all. So anyway, get it cleaned out as good as you can, and then we're going to drive in the new races, and I'll kind of show you how I do that. I have a bearing race driver set. You don't necessarily need that if you can find something big enough. You just basically need to find something that'll go over this, the right size, that you can pound down into the rotor till it bottoms out. If you don't have that set or you can't find anything, I'm pretty sure most auto parts stores will rent that out. So I'm going to go get that and get set up, and then we'll put this thing back together. Alright, the best way to drive these races back in is with a bearing and race seal driver set. I got the already set up. You want to find one that'll sit in there like this. So just find the right size. This is the set. It's a common set. I've had this one for years. It's got different drivers in it. So once you get this all cleaned out, you're just going to set the new race in there as level as possible and just beat it down. You don't have to go crazy on it. Just give it some love taps till it bottoms out, and then you move on to the other side. Kind of check it here and there, make sure it's going straight. It is. And then usually when you hear that doop, the different sound, that means it's bottomed out. We'll give it a few more love taps just to make sure. Yeah. So that's bottomed out. I don't know how good it's going to show up here, but it's all the way in there and it's down where it's supposed to be. You just flip it over, find the right size for, these just have a bolt. So we'll take this one off, get the other race, and find the right size for it. Should slide in there, and you don't want to put too big a one in there because you want to be able to drive this all the way in. So get that in there, and then you just screw this back on. And this is all pretty self-explanatory if you get your own kit, or if you rent it. Pretty sure most auto parts stores will rent these out to you if you don't want to buy it. And same technique, you just set it in there level, and go ahead and drive it in lightly until it bottoms out. Kind of check it, make sure it's that's bottomed out right there. Give it a couple more love taps. So yours done there. Now all we have to do is pack those bearings. I have a bearing packer that I use. There is a way to do it by hand. I'll show you both methods. I like to use a bearing packer because I don't get my hands all dirty. I really, like I said before, I hate doing these stupid bearings. But there's a lot of these still on the road. There's a lot of classic cars or whatever that need this work done. So luckily, I'm just glad we don't have to do it too much anymore. So I'm going to get set up, get my bearing packer set up. I'll show you that, and then I'll show you how to do it by hand if you don't know how to do that. And then we'll pack the bearings down, put a little grease on that spindle, and then we'll set this back together, and that'll be it. We'll be good to go. Alright, so here's one of the old school bearing packers. I've had this since probably the mid-90s. My old boss used to always do all his by hand. Yeah, I never liked doing it that way. I'm going to go ahead and do it that way on this car just to show you guys. But all you do on if you have one of these, or if you know someone that has one, or you want to buy one, if you plan on doing this a lot, you just set the bearing down in there. And then this is all full of grease here. And you push this over the bearing and press down on it real hard, and that'll pack the bearing. The other way, and you don't have to have this to do that. These actually work really well. I like using these, but you can also skip this. My guess is if you have one of these and you already know how to do it, so this is kind of irrelevant. But and I wouldn't really recommend buying one of these unless you work on a lot of old cars or whatever. I've had this, like I said, I maybe use this once every couple of years now because I don't really see too many of these old style. The other way is you put a bunch of grease on your hand and you take the outside edge and you kind of go like that, and you just push the grease. You kind of press down your palm and push the grease into the bearing, and you just go around back and forth and do it that way. That's how, like I said, I would recommend doing it probably. If there's no point in buying that backer unless you're going to do a lot of these. So if you're just doing these once in a while, that's perfectly fine. You just put a bunch of grease, get a glove or something, put a bunch of grease. Or if if you're the Hoopty lifestyle, you can use your bare hand, put a bunch of grease right here, and just go back and forth with it. Don't just rub it on the bearing. That's not going to really pack it. You want to pack these bearings in real well. So you have to get in right here where the grease is supposed to go. That's where you want to pack it in, and then that'll move it throughout the bearing instead of just be on the outside of the bearing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to pack this bearing, and then I'm going to flip it over, put the bearing in, we'll put that seal in, and then it's just a matter of putting it back together. So I got the new seal. This is that seal that we use the bolt to get off. We still have to tap that in. It's this thing right here. So anyway, I'm going to pack these real quick, probably with my bearing packer, and then I'll catch back up with you on it. Alright, on these steels, you don't really need to put anything over these. These don't go down that far. If you just tap them around the edge, they should seat. I don't usually worry about going to get a driver seal or anything like that. So I just kind of tap them around the edge evenly. Alright, so that thing's in. If you feel more comfortable, you can put a big socket or whatever on there. But if you do it, it's not that hard. Just set it on there and kind of get it tapped in. Just go around evenly. So it's all in there now. And the bearing's packed, so I'm going to go ahead and put this. I'll put a little grease on that spindle there, and we will slide this back up there, and then we'll adjust that. We'll put the front bearing in and adjust it, and then pretty much button this thing up. Alright, so I got the rotor back up there. I did put a little more grease on that spindle. And now the next step is just reverse of how you took it off. I've already got the outer bearing lubed up, so I'm just going to throw it in there and help it seat. Sometimes they're a little sticky to get in. Now it's seated in there. Man, I don't know what kind of grease these people before me did, but I hate it. It's so stringy. It's everywhere. So next thing you got is your little washer that goes between the bearing and the bolt. And it's got the slots in it, so you're going to want to line up the slots. On this, the slots are straight up and down. So just line the flat ends up, put that on there, and then screw your nut in. And on these, you don't want to screw these nut in as tight as you can get them because you'll burn your bearings up. So what I normally do, I know people argue about this a little bit, but what I normally do is you're going to have to turn it down and get everything to seat, and you'll kind of feel it seat when it does it. This one's pretty well seated. Now the tighter you turn this, the harder this rotor will be to turn. Like right there, it's kind of catching already. And normally what I do is once this starts to get pretty tight and the rotor's starting to slow down a little bit, then I'll just back it off a little bit. Look how stringy that is. It's driving me nuts. The main thing is you want it tight so we don't have that problem that we had when we pulled the truck in, where it's moving back and forth. But you don't want it so tight that you burn up your bearings. So this is pretty tight. It's actually, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and back it off a little bit. You don't want to go crazy backing it off. About right there. And this thing's pretty freewheeling, and there's no play in it. So that should be about where you want it. You don't want it, like I said, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but you don't want it super, super tight. Put your castle nut thing back on there, and that will prevent the nut from backing out any farther. Because you can see, if you get too loose, then we have the problem that we had when we pulled it in, where the whole wheel starts getting loose. I don't know if I got another cotter pin. I may have to find another cotter pin. This one, let me go find another cotter pin real quick. This one's pretty tore up. Alright, so I misspoke earlier because I was lied to. When I was looking at the bearings online to order from O'Reilly's, the one I ordered said it came with a new cap, but when he showed up at the parts, it did not have the new cap with it. So I'm going to have to reuse this one. Now you can't just set this on here. I got the new cotter pin in. You can't just set these on here and just gently tap around them. But I got an old full of dry socket that I use that doesn't damage the cap at all. And that's all there is to that. If you don't have the old full of dry socket or something to go over that, you can, like I said, you can kind of just go around and tap it. But if you got something like this, then just set that over it and get to going on it. So that's pretty much it. Of course, I already cleaned the backside, but you're going to want to clean the rotor real good, get all that grease and crap off of it. Put your brakes back on, and you're probably going to have to pump your brakes up if you push that copper back a little bit. And I'll take a towel, go around that, of course. And anyway, put the brakes back on. That's it. That's all there is to it. And this thing should pass inspection. This thing should pass state inspection. This thing should pass state inspection now, and then should be good to go. I got a few other things she wants me to do to it, so I'm going to get on to that. But that's pretty much the basic outline of a two-wheel drive F150 wheel bearing. Now, if you have, with this generation, this is 95. I did find that out when I ordered the parts. This is a 95, so I think this body style went from, I want to say 91 to 95, something like that, 96. If you have a four-wheel drive, it's a little more involved, and there's a hub here. This is just a regular bearing, but if you have four-wheel drive, you have a locking hub with you know, with all that going on. So it's a little more involved with that. You'll need special tools. This is actually one of them right here. I don't know if this is the one for the Fords, but there's different sizes, and you need these special tools to get the locking hub off. And it's a whole nother, just another big headache. I mean, it's not that bad, but it's a lot more involved than just doing this. So if you have a two-wheel drive F150, this is how you do it. You got a four-wheel drive F150, I guess look somewhere else for it, because I don't have any videos on that. It's been a while since I've seen locking hubs. I know Ford used it all the way in the OOs, but I don't have one to work on right now. So if I get one, maybe I'll shoot a video. So anyway, that's about it for the wheel bearing on this. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, please subscribe or like, or vice versa, however you do it. I'd really appreciate it. Appreciate you watching, and I'm going to get this back together, get this hoopty back on the road, and we'll see you on the next one, and God bless.